By 1943, 10 million Americans have been drafted. One is 18-year-old Harold Baumgarten, a New Yorker from the Bronx. He'd been offered a tryout at Yankee Stadium.
But before I could begin playing for the team, I was drafted. On July 10th, 1943, I entered the U.S. Army.
What they did as 18 or 19-year-old soldiers was far and away of greater significance than anything they ever did in the rest of their lives.
William Dabney convinces his grandmother to let him sign up at the age of 17.
I just wanted to follow my buddies.
During our Revolutionary War, a sixth of all of George Washington's soldiers were black men. And every time in the course of our first couple of hundred years that we had a conflict and we called upon all citizens, black citizens as well, to serve, blacks stepped forward.
Despite the struggles of war, old prejudices remain. Platoons are segregated.
The Army played a significant role because in many ways the Army was the first place that blacks and whites began to have to stand together and represent the same idea, even though they were in segregated barracks.
World War II changed the entire world, but it certainly transformed the black American psyche in a way that led to and made possible the civil rights movement of the 50s and the 60s.
William Dabney volunteers for the exciting-sounding Special Service. But all the training in the world cannot prepare him for the horror that is to come. June 1944. Southern England becomes a massive army camp of 3 million Allied troops. Over 1.5 million tons of equipment are shipped and flown from America. The goal is to retake Europe from the Germans. General Dwight D. Eisenhower takes command of the biggest amphibious military operation in history, codenamed Operation Overlord. To the world, the Normandy landings are simply known as D-Day. Every material factor of war is catered for. The Medical Corps alone stockpiles tens of thousands of tons of medical supplies, bandages, morphine, surgical instruments, bedpans, oxygen tents, and X-ray machines. There are prosthetic limbs and even eyeballs in 5 sizes and 4 colors. By 1944, an American combatant could draw on 4 tons of supplies versus a Japanese combatant who had just 2 pounds.
No one had ever produced so much in such a short time. And this is what really shocked both the Japanese and the Germans.
Blood is so crucial, the U.S. develops a system of blood banks on an industrial scale. In the 6 months leading up to D-Day, Americans donate a pint of blood every 2 seconds. The blood is turned into plasma so it can be used on the battlefield. It is bottled, put in ice, and packed in cans. But all these supplies are useless without men prepared to die. D-Day is coming. June 5th, 1944. American industry gives the military the means to retake Europe. Now the nation must sacrifice its sons. Over 5.4 million U.S. soldiers will invade Europe in World War II. That's 40 times the number of U.S. combat troops that originally invaded Iraq. This is the night before the biggest single amphibious landing the world has ever seen. D-Day. Harold Baumgarten has come a long way since enlisting a year ago.
Many of us had our heads shaved so that our hair could not be grabbed during hand-to-hand combat.
Many of these men have less than 12 hours to live.
I did not expect to come back alive. I wrote such to my sister to get the mail before my parents and break the news gently to them when she received the telegram.
You know, we were brought up on good guys and bad guys. We go back, we talk about our Westerns that way. You know, Hitler was a clear enemy. I think when you have a really clear enemy, you've won the hearts and minds. There was that commitment of sacrifice.
Eve of battle rituals include Mohican haircuts and war paint. Preparations are mental as well as material. Dog tags are taped together so they don't rattle. Stealth can mean you live or die. One officer tells his men what they can expect.
Look to the right of you. Look to the left of you. There's only going to be one of you left after the first week.
William Dabney now knows what his special service mission is. He has to drag a barrage balloon ashore while under heavy fire. It's a tactic designed to block German aircraft from strafing Allied troops. His chances are slim, yet he is determined to survive.
I will return. I will come back to the USA. I'm not looking forward to getting shot or killed. I'm looking forward to going home.
More than 70,000 American troops are about to invade German-held France. Over 1,000 will die on the first day, June 6, 1944, D-Day. Over 5,000 ships and 10,000 aircraft are involved in the first wave alone. 5 beaches will be stormed. The most infamous is codenamed Omaha Beach.
Think about Omaha Beach from the standpoint of the young man. The ramp is about to drop, and the sights and the sounds all around provide the context of hell.
The first troops on Omaha Beach meet ferocious German resistance. Rocket launchers, mortars, and 85 machine gun nests tear into the Americans. There were meant to be 32 tanks with them, but 27 sink. The men are left with virtually no cover on the beach. William Dabney is totally exposed. Tethered to his barrage balloon, he's defenseless. When it's shot down, he has his chance. Like every other soldier on Omaha Beach, black or white, Dabney's mission now is to survive.
There wasn't any segregation there.
Harold Baumgarten is thrown straight into the carnage.
There were men with guts hanging out of their wounds and body parts lying along our path.
Some men were simply overwhelmed by the hell they met. By 9 a.m., almost 5,000 men are ashore. There are more than 2,000 U.S. casualties on Omaha Beach alone. William Dabney survives. He is later awarded the Legion of Honor. Operation Overlord is a logistical miracle, but the cost is staggering. Nearly 126,000 Americans are killed, wounded, or go missing during the Battle of Normandy. Harold Baumgarten is hit 5 times. After losing blood for over 30 hours, Baumgarten is brought back from the dead by a plasma transfusion, then injections of penicillin and morphine, the very supplies America has mass-produced to keep its men alive. D-Day is key to Hitler's defeat. Within a month, the Allies have landed more than 877,000 troops, 112,000 vehicles, and 573,000 tons of supplies. U.S. bombing destroys German oil reserves and transportation. American machinery and men powers the drive to Berlin and victory in Europe. But men are still dying fighting the Japanese.
Then, the Stevens unit received urgent orders to move south through Germany to Bavaria. At the Dachau concentration camp, what they saw and recorded would not soon be forgotten. Some German guards had disguised themselves in the striped uniforms of the prisoners. Working with recently freed inmates, the liberators sought to identify the Germans. "122 SS guards were shot. After years of horror and degradation, the time had come for Dachau's first religious service. On May 8th, 10 days after the liberation of Dachau, came the news that the world had long awaited.
Good morning from the White House in Washington. The President of the United States.
The Western world has been freed of the evil forces which for 5 years and longer have imprisoned the bodies and broken the lives of millions upon millions of free-born men. The flags of freedom fly all over Europe.
The Alamogordo Desert, New Mexico. July 16, 1945, 5:27 a.m. In 3 minutes, American technology will change the world forever. Robert Oppenheimer, the theoretical physicist who loves poetry as much as science. The FBI would track his every move, worried that he's a communist. Yet Oppenheimer leads the biggest scientific test in history, the top-secret Manhattan Project. Theoretically, fission physics could enable enormous amounts of explosive energy to be released from a single device, the atomic bomb. The bomb is the most technologically advanced weapon in the world, yet nobody is sure whether it will work.
Even many of the people who worked on the bomb itself were skeptical that the bomb would actually work. No one had ever done anything like this.
The use of bombing escalates on all sides in World War II, so that whole cities of civilians are being hit. Now the U.S. military hope a single bomb can destroy an entire city.
Wreaking that kind of mass destruction, that was something new in the history of warfare. The atomic bomb has put an emphatic punctuation to that decision, but the decision was way before August of 1945.
If this test works, there are more atomic bombs to use on the Japanese in hopes of ending the war.
29.
Deputy Commanding General of the Manhattan Project, Thomas Farrell, watches Oppenheimer.
Dr. Oppenheimer grew tenser as the last seconds ticked off. He scarcely breathed. He stared directly ahead.
11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
The temperature generated at the center of the explosion is 10,000 times greater than the surface of the sun. The heat turns the desert sand to glass. The explosion is more massive than even Oppenheimer expects.
When it went off in the New Mexico dawn, that first atomic bomb, we thought of Alfred Nobel and his hope, his vain hope that dynamite would put an end to wars.
Even the scientists themselves recognized the gravity of that moment. And of course, Oppenheimer famously said, "I become death, the destroyer of worlds," quoting the Bhagavad Gita, and recognizing that man had really reached a turning point where the power available to us was almost limitless.
When atomic bombs are dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, an estimated 120,000 people die instantly. Over the days, months, and years that follow, up to 80,000 more die slowly. A day after the second bomb is dropped, the Japanese surrender. America's technical innovation is decisive in winning the bloodiest war in history. Having survived the Depression and World War II, the greatest generation comes home.
They'd been through it all, and they wanted one thing. They wanted a better life for their families than they'd had. And that's what they dedicated themselves to.
America's distance from battle leaves its infrastructure intact, its economy vibrant. It produces twice as much oil as the rest of the world combined. It has half the world's manufacturing capacity and 2/3 of its gold stocks.
And they had no real competition in the world because Europe was devastated, Asia was devastated, and America could be the colossus that it became.
World War II transforms the USA in only 4 years. Americans make twice as much money as they did before the war. They have 50 million babies in 15 years. There are 20 million new jobs in 25 years. America becomes a superpower.